Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us. My name's Andrea and I'm joined by Lance from our product development team. We are here today to talk about the Great American Total Solar Eclipse and answer your questions. So this isn't going to be much of a conversation if we don't get good questions from you, so please feel free to chime in the chat anytime with your questions. And for all the questions that you ask us, we are going to be choosing 3 winners. A lot of you are in the same boat and just wondering what that experience is going to be like. I did see a partial eclipse back in 2014 here at Celestron. We had a big viewing party and we all witnessed about a 30% eclipse. When this eclipse comes along, our headquarters in Torrance is going to experience about 60% eclipse, which is something like this. So that's where I'll be, and I'm looking forward to it. I think a lot of you will be in the partial territory too, so we'll talk about that as well. And with that, Lance is going to be in the path. He's been in the path several times before, so just tell us about what that's like and what your experiences have been over the years.
Sure. It's absolutely incredible to experience a total eclipse for the first time. This will actually be my second total eclipse, but I have also been to a couple of annular eclipses and probably about a dozen other partials throughout my life. A total eclipse is something that is unique and completely different than anything else you will ever experience in your lifetime. So if you have an opportunity to get to totality, I highly recommend it. For those last few minutes before the sun finally disappears behind the moon, strange things start to happen. Those last minutes, it's as if somebody took the color slider and basically turned off all color in the world. Things will actually look like a sepia tone photograph. It's really wild. Shadows sharpen to the point where you can actually see the shadow of the hair on your arms cast on the ground. That's something that cannot happen at any other time. It's just an absolutely incredible experience. You get a 360-degree view of sunrise or sunset around you for those few moments. If you're located in a high spot, like a mountain overlooking a plain, you might even see the shadow of the sun, or the shadow of the moon, excuse me, racing towards you at about 1,000 miles an hour. That is something that is definitely worth checking out.
So, what does it feel like when you're in totality, and what does the corona actually look like? The best way you could describe it to someone.
How it feels, it was as close to a surreal experience as I'll ever have. I get goosebumps even thinking about it, and it's been 10 years since I've been in totality. You do feel a drop in the temperature. You definitely, like I said, the changes in color, the sharpness of the shadows, it is just completely unreal.
Sweet. So we'll go ahead and get into some of these questions. We received some questions from you guys before we even started, so I want to make sure we hit some of those that sent in your questions early. The first one is about our Eclipse Smart products, and specifically using them with kids. So one person says, I am a first grade teacher. What Eclipse Smart products would be perfect for these kids? So we can kind of go through a lot of the Eclipse Smart product and then specifically talk about which ones you would recommend for kids.
Absolutely. First up, of course, we have the typical solar shades. These are good for pretty much anybody. Kids, absolutely. You'll notice that there is a little bit of a widespread between the two, and some kids may have trouble being able to see out of both eyes. But with these paper units, they're actually quite easy to fix that for the kids. Basically, what you do is you simply fold it in half, give yourself a little crease right there in the middle, and then just like folding a paper airplane wings, you simply fold this back out. Do this with both sides, and then you have this beautiful little nose piece that you can hold. The glasses are now closer together, and the kids will be able to use them by bringing them together. So this is definitely recommended. One thing I do have to stress is do not allow kids to use these unattended. It is very important that if you have a group of children and you're handing out these type of solar glasses, please don't view the eclipse with your own glasses while the kids are using these. It is absolutely important that you make sure the kids are using it properly. And what I mean by that is you hand these to kids. Most kids will take the glasses, they will look up in the sky at the sun, and then put the glasses on. By then, they're already starting to do some damage to their eyes. So it is important that the kids actually put the glasses on first, then look up towards the sun. You're not going to be able to miss it if you have these on, so it's not a problem with them being able to find it. It'll be the only thing they'll be able to see with these glasses.
When it comes to, you mentioned handing out glasses to groups, that's going to be pretty common throughout the country on
Absolutely.
August 21st, not just for kids, but groups of adults. There's going to be a lot of these glasses floating around made by a lot of different companies and a lot of different looks. So what should people know about our Eclipse smart glasses, and just to be absolutely sure that they're safe?
Absolutely. There is an ISO standard for safe observation of the sun with basically eyewear. And our material is actually one of the few companies out there that has actually had this material tested, and they are fully compliant with the ISO standards for light transmission. These are completely safe for you to use, whether it be a child, an adult, anybody can use our products. They all have the same basic filter material. As you can see, this is kind of like a mylar material. You can see it flexes a little bit. We do also have another pair of hard shade glasses. These actually look more like your typical sunglasses, but you'll also notice that they're a little harder, and the reason for that is because they're basically laminated. So this allows you to have a little more protection from scratching or puncturing holes in them. They're a little more protected. But again, these can be used by anyone. Uses the same exact filter material that these do, as well as any of our other solar products. For example, the telescope filters, all of those use the exact same material. So no matter which ones you use, you are guaranteed to have ISO compliant solar safety filters.
So speaking of binoculars, telescopes, etc., we had just had a question come in from Richard Danley, and he asks, what are your recommendations pre-totality? Filtered binoculars, filtered telescope, or Eclipse glasses? And I think this also, he specified pre-totality, so if you could also talk a little bit about when you need protection and when you don't.
Absolutely. No matter where you're at, any of the partial phases of the eclipse leading up to totality or leading away from totality, you will require some type of solar filter material. The only time that it will be safe for you to view the eclipse is during totality, those moments where the moon is completely blocking out the sun, and I mean completely, not just a little hint. A lot of people try to look for Bailey's beads with the naked eye. I really don't recommend that. Let a camera do the work for you, so that if any problems occur, it's not going to be with your eye, it's a camera, you can always get another one. Can't do that with your eyeballs. So the trick there is to, basically, your question was to which ones do you recommend. To be honest with you, I would recommend all of them. There's nothing wrong with that. An eclipse is fun to watch the partial phases. Remember, it's going to take roughly about an hour and 15 minutes from first contact to the time when totality begins. So it's quite comfortable to wear these, have them in your pocket, be ready to observe whenever you just want to take a quick peek and see how it's progressing. Binoculars, on the other hand, are actually, in my opinion, one of the best ways to view it. You have binoculars with the solar safe technology. These are actually glass filters. They don't use the mylar, but these are also tested to ISO standards. So these are also part of the safety group that we have. But the key thing here is that they're hand-holdable. They're fairly lightweight. We have two models. You can see you've got a nice little compact model. Keep them in your pocket. Light to carry around the neck. But the beauty of this is this gives you 10 power magnification. Magnification is key if you really want to see detail in the little sharp crescent of the sun as it gets smaller and smaller. This is a really good way to view that, and especially if there are sunspots visible, large sunspot groups, you're going to see them in these better than you will with the naked eye or even with these type of glasses. Now the telescope, of course, is also a great idea, and we have the Eclipse Smart 50 that you see here. That also uses the same type of glass filters that we have here. The major difference is that you can actually change the magnification, but with the eyepiece that it comes with, will give you 18 power. That's about the most magnification of any of the products that we offer. but it will allow you to view the eclipse in all of its phases, with the exception of totality. I do have to stress that. The glass filters on these products, both the travel scope and the two binoculars, they're not removable. We did that for safety's sake, so that at no time, if you're handing these around to people or you're setting them down on a camp table, that the filters are going to come off and expose you to the full blast of sunlight. So these are perfect for the partial phases, but not during totality. During totality, you are actually going to want to set all of your optical equipment down and take in the glorious sight with your own eyes. Please, I cannot stress enough, enjoy the moment. It's an experience that you will never forget.
I've been seeing a few people on our chat talking about welding glasses. And I know that that is kind of a urban myth that's out there, that you can view an eclipse with welding glasses. Can you just talk about, alternative solar viewers that maybe aren't safe and why they're not safe?
Yeah, to be honest with you, when I was growing up, I had a neighbor who would actually smoke glass on a barbecue. They would actually burn wood in a barbecue, put a pane of glass over it so that it darkened it, and then use that. That does not offer you any protection against infrared, ultraviolet. That basically blocks the visible spectrum. I definitely do not recommend doing anything like that. Some people used to use exposed film, like 35 millimeter film. When you expose it, and it actually fogs to the point where it looks like it's safe, but it is not. I can't stress that enough. Again, it does not protect you outside of the visible spectrum. Some other things that people would do, Mylar, they assume that this type of material here looks like the Mylar that you have in a birthday balloon. But I assure you...
potato chip
Yeah,
bag.
or a potato chip bag, exactly right. You get that kind of shiny surface. But the truth is, no, that is absolutely the wrong way to go. You use those, you will be able to see the sun through it, but again, you're not filtering it properly and can be doing damage to your eye.
The scary thing that I learned from Dr. Rick Feinberg from the American Astronomical Society is that your retina actually doesn't have any nerves.
Yeah,
so
there's no pain receptors in your eye.
When you're doing damage to your retina, you can't feel it, and you don't know that it's happening until it's too late. So that's why, to me, that really just stuck into my mind, and it's not worth taking any chances on
Absolutely.
that. Let's jump into some of these other questions. Okay, this is a good, real practical question about being out there on the day of the eclipse. I have purchased the deluxe kit. I would like to view the sun with the glasses and put the filter on my camera. How can I do both if I can only see through one? So I think you're talking about our photo filter, which is great for your point and shoot camera, and using this to take your photo and using the glasses to view as it's happening. So what are the logistics of how that plays out?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I do not recommend doing both at the same time, and there's a couple of reasons for that. But primarily, when you're viewing the sun, you're going to have these glasses on, and you are not going to be able to see your hand in front of your face. So let's just say you have your camera, and it's set up on a tripod pointing towards the sun, and your hand holding this in front, well, putting on your glasses and looking up, and you don't realize it, but you're moving the filter upward or to the side, and all of a sudden, your camera is no longer filtered. Well, that's not going to hurt you. I guarantee it's going to burn the sensor off of your camera. You will have basically a permanent blind spot on your camera in the shape of the sun, and if it's a crescent, that might look really cool. It will be in every photo that you ever take with that camera thereafter. If you have, take an image of the sky with a light background, you'll see a dark shadow. If you take a picture of a dark surface of a lake, you're going to see a brighter spot in the shape of the sun where it overexposed and wound up doing that.
So with totality lasting around 1 to 2.5 minutes for most people, I think the best way is grab your photo and then look.
Exactly.
And
you're going to have
can
plenty of time. Like I said, for most parts on the line of totality, you're going to have an hour of partial phases before you get to that great few moments of totality. You'll have plenty of time. Snap your shot. Turn your camera away from the sun before removing the filter, and then put your glasses on and enjoy it till you're ready to take your next picture. That's the great thing about a solar eclipse. It is a slow-moving target, so you will have plenty of time to take your picture, look, if you don't like it, set it up, take it again. You'll have plenty of time.
All right, let's see. Okay, I do have a question that can be best answered here, says Harry Sproul. What is the best way to find the sun with my telescope? I have the Eclipse Smart on my Nexstar 130 SLT, but I take off the finder scope when observing the sun, so it's very difficult to find the sun without going blind. Any tips? Also, what eyepieces can I use to observe safely? I have only viewed the sun once with 32 millimeter and 17 millimeter. I am afraid that if I use 6 or 8 millimeter, it might be dangerous. Is that irrational, or are there limits? Thanks for the help.
No problem, Harry. Actually, it just so happens I have an XR 130 tube right here.
Nice.
And there's actually a very simple and straightforward way to find the sun without using a finder scope, and more importantly, without even looking in the direction of the sun. A lot of people think that they just kneel down and sight down the length of the tube towards the sun. Again, we don't recommend that. You want to limit any exposure of your naked eye to direct sunlight. So what you do is you simply turn around. Look at the shadow of the optical tube on the floor. If the sun is facing off to the side, you will notice that the shape of the tube is not perfectly round. But in a specific direction. So what you do is you look at the shadow and you move your scope until you are literally a round circle. If the shadow is round, the sun should be within your low power eyepiece field. It's actually the easiest and safest way to actually find the sun in any telescope using a filter. Now,
so the second question about eyepieces.
Yes, and actually, before I drop that down, to show you, we have this place. So feel free to use your low power around it. If you have a tracking mount, such as the one that you had said, you can crank it up a little bit and go with a little higher power so that you don't have to constantly nudge the scope as if you had a manual telescope. But again, you're not limited only to what kind of a view you want to see and how much space and area around the sun you want to see. Now, I don't recommend high magnifications, especially during totality. When you take that off, the solar corona plays tricks on everybody. There are times when it can be very, very large, times when it can be very, very small. You won't know until the moment happens. And so what you don't want to do is look in your eyepiece and see the full disk of the sun and cut off the corona outside of your field of view and then be panicking looking for your wider field eyepiece. When you get near totality, I would crank it down a couple of notches to go to low power so that you can actually see just how wide that corona expands.
Yeah, we have a lot of comments here in the discussion talking about eyepieces and magnification. What eyepiece do you recommend for viewing the eclipse? Maybe we can use that to kind of talk about why we made the decisions we made with the travel scope and how that translates, and really the advantages, like you said, you can use any eyepiece you want, but what
Absolutely.
you're going to see and what the differences are with each one that you might choose and why.
No problem. Basically, we chose 18 power, or roughly 18 power, for this particular model of scope because it is a simple alt-azimuth operation scope. It is a manual scope, meaning that there's no motor drive to track the sun. And as we all know, you're standing on Earth. Earth is rotating, so the sun appears to be moving. You will actually see it drift across your field of view. And the higher the magnification that you observe with, the more noticeable that drift is going to be. So if you have a scope that has a tracking mount, you're in luck. You can go up to a high magnification and that sun will stay centered within your field of view. But for a manual scope like these, we wanted you to have a nice wide field of view so that you can get put the sun so that it will drift across the center and then out the other side before you have to nudge it over to compensate for the Earth's rotation. And why is this handy? Because if you're sitting there with a family and you want to show them at high magnification, you're going to look in the eyepiece, and by the time the next person comes over at high power, they're going to look in the eyepiece and it's going to be half drifted out of the field of view. So lower power, wider field means far less adjustment, and you can cycle people through the eyepiece before you have to constantly keep making adjustments to your manual mount.
Makes sense. Here's a question about eclipses in general. How much coverage of the sun does it have to be in order to see Mercury, Venus, stars?
To be honest with you, it pretty much requires totality. I hate to say this, but having been through a couple of annular eclipses with up to 98% of the sun blocked, and just leaving a thin little ring of the sun left visible, it was still bright as your typical daylight. The sky will not get dark. You will not start to see the planets come out or anything like that. In order to see that, it would require that you be in the path of totality.
We've got Gerald has a Power Seeker 127 EQ and the Eclipse Smart Solar Filter, and he's just saying, any tips for viewing?
Again, no, we basically covered the eyepieces. Again, remember, magnification is not important. It's really the field of view that you want and how you want to frame the sun in your image to make it easier for you to track.
What else do we have? Okay, for those who are staying local, like me, and have to be at work that day, how can we still enjoy the partial phases of the eclipse?
Absolutely. Well, it definitely helps working for a telescope company.
That's true. I think it's going to be a big day here. Yeah.
Actually, I think it's going to be a quiet day here. I know most of the people in our engineering department are traveling out of into totality to see it. But
those that are here, we're going to be celebrating.
Absolutely.
That's for sure.
As I mentioned before, the fun thing about a solar eclipse is it does take place over a long amount of time. Here in Los Angeles, it'll be roughly 2 hours from first contact to last contact. So what that means is that you don't have to be out there for the entire 2 hours to really enjoy it. All you got to do is get yourself a pair of solar shades, try to leave your desk, get outside for 5 minutes, put them on, take a look at the event, go back inside, come back out in 15-20 minutes and do it again. Just keep taking quick little glances and you will still enjoy the full effect that the partial eclipse phases have to offer. It is an incredible experience to actually see the eclipse when you see the moon and you see the motion of the earth, the moon, and the sun, and realize that you're physically witnessing the motions of the solar system. It's incredible and definitely should not be missed, even if you don't get to totality. For most of North America, you're looking at least a 50 to 60% eclipse. I highly recommend it. That's a deep eclipse. You don't get those too often. And for it to, if it's happening, do yourself a favor. Grab a pair of these. They're relatively inexpensive, and you will have memories of that event forever.
Edgar is asking, I recently purchased the Eclipse Smart glasses with the booklet for family. I was wondering, how do we check that we are getting legitimate, authentic glasses and not an imitation, since there have been many copies, etc., non-ISO compliant solar glasses out there? And I think we can use that to kind of talk about all of our paper products and the plastic glasses too. We haven't really gotten into
Absolutely.
those.
So again, the key thing to look for is the Solar Safe logo. You want to look at, I'm not sure if we can have one that's larger to show the camera, but on our glasses you will see
Brenda can show it.
the ISO and CE, or Brenda, if you can help me out there.
Facebook Live.
So that logo right there is basically tells you that we have actually compared our units and found them to be meeting or exceeding the requirements for that ISO designation.
And that applies to the glasses and also these. If you haven't seen these yet, these are the 2x power viewers. So these are basically folding paper solar binoculars, and this is just going to give you a little bit of magnification. And actually, it was Wirecutter.com said that this was their favorite tool to view the eclipse because it's just giving you that little bit of boost in magnification, a little bit more detail.
Yeah, you get a little larger
affordable
image scale than you would naked eye, and believe me, it does make a difference.
So we've got, this is also the same ISO solar film.
The same
that's
exact
being
filter
used.
material that you can see inside the glass right there, that you'll see the same exact material that we use for all of our products.
And
again,
that's also, even though these are hard glasses, they also have the same solar film in them. And then for our binoculars and telescope, this is something some people are talking about in the comments. The removable filters for binoculars and telescope, or for binoculars.
Yes.
Why are Eclipse Smart binoculars only for viewing the sun? Why did we choose not to make binoculars with removable filters?
Well, anytime you have removable filters, and this goes for telescopes too, you always run a small risk that the filters can be knocked off accidentally. To be honest with you, I've been many occasions where I've seen people with solar binoculars, and they're fine when you're looking at the sun and you've got your binoculars up here, but you're not going to be holding them upwards unless they're tripod mounted. You're not going to be holding them pointed upwards throughout the entire event.
Well, and
generally
that's the
speaking,
difference with a telescope too. It's
yes,
on a tripod, and
you're going to want to set them down. And most people set down a pair of binoculars like these, as we have with these. What you find is that a lot of times the filters will fall off. When you pick them up, you may not realize that the filter's been left behind. Put them up to your eye. Again, bad news when you're at 10 power magnification. I'm sure we've all seen magnifying glass burning a piece of paper. Well, that's exactly what this is going to do. So we decided, for safety's sake, just make these foolproof for the user to see all of the partial phases.
So what do you use these for on August 22nd?
Oh, geez, a lot. As a matter of fact, 2019, there's actually going to be a transit planet. Venus is actually going to cross the face of the sun. And
cool.
Guess what? These are just perfectly suited for that type of application.
And just on any day, you can see sunspots.
Sunspots, exactly right. So, in fact, we just had one a couple of weeks ago that was just phenomenal. Probably one of the biggest sunspot groups that we've seen in a couple of years pass by. And most definitely with the larger binoculars, you're going to be able to see that with no problem at all, or even with the telescope.
All right. Let's see. We're running out of time here, and I do want to save some time at the end for our giveaway. So let's go ahead and just take one more question. Oh, how can you clean a solar filter?
Cleaning a solar filter is pretty much the same way as cleaning a very delicate lens. Basically, I would recommend blowing it off with a blower bulb, or try to
Something
avoid.
very gentle.
Yeah, try to avoid a can of compressed air, like the kind you use for keyboards. When those get low, or if you tilt the can, they have a tendency to spit out propellant, which will actually cause permanent stains. Even on glass, it won't be permanent, but it makes it very difficult to clean after that. But I would recommend, just for like the Mylar type material, really all you need is a soft cloth or even a camel hair brush to dust most of the dust off. But don't worry if there's dust on it. It's not going to affect your image quality whatsoever. You might lose 1,000th of a % of throughput of light. But we're talking about the sun, which has more than enough energy to get through. The trick is, you shouldn't need to worry about cleaning it at all.
Speaking of the photo filter, and just in general, I know you're an avid photographer. What
Yes.
are your tips for getting the perfect shot of the eclipse?
Tripod mount. Whatever you do, don't try to handhold. I mean, if you have a small point and shoot camera, you can get some decent images. But don't try to handhold a DSLR with this in front of it. There's too many things moving. Again, you run the risk if you have a large enough lens that's 55 millimeters. It only gives you about 10 millimeters or 5 on either side of error before the sunlight can actually shine through. So again, for safety's sake, you want to avoid doing that. My recommendation, definitely put it on a tripod. The key thing, turn the camera away from the sun, place the filter over the camera, rotate the camera, and again, you'll be looking at the viewfinder on the back of the camera, the LCD screen. Do not use the viewfinder. But once you have this covered, you can take your picture, and then when you're ready to remove it, simply rotate it over, then remove the filter.
Got it.
Don't forget to bracket your exposures. Don't hesitate. Digital cameras come cheap. It's not like in the days when 1994, I actually shot an annular eclipse on Kodachrome 64 film. I went through about 12 rolls of film during that, and that was a pretty expensive proposition. Digital cameras, they give you the joys of being able to shoot as much as you want and delete what you don't like later.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. I think we're getting close to the end here. Just before we go, I do want to remind everyone, if your question wasn't answered, Lance actually was in a couple of videos that we've posted on our YouTube channel talking about safety tips. We also had Kevin Kawai, who should have been sitting where I'm sitting today. If you're watching, hey Kevin, he's homesick today, so
hope you feel better.
We miss you. But he was hosting one of the videos as well about safety tips and things you need to know if you want to refresh on anything that we covered. Those are great to refer back to.
Yeah, and absolutely, I just want to point out too that there's a great video on there that shows the use of this, and actually we actually show us outside with it showing how to use this. It's a really great tip for you.
Cool, so we hope you enjoyed our first Facebook Live. This is our first time trying this, so if you liked it, leave us comments, let us know that you want to see more, what topics we should cover. And in the meantime, we can go ahead and give out our raffle prizes. So we are giving these out to, unfortunately, for US and Canada only, but we'll see what happens with future Facebook Live events. For this, if you did win, send us a message on Facebook and we'll get you your product. So first, we'll go ahead and do the power viewers, which we talked about before.
Yes.
So this is a kit with 2 pairs of the power viewers for you and a friend, and it also includes a booklet.
Yes, the transit map, actually.
Oh, the map.
Yes, this one.
So you'll be able to find your location and figure out the percentage of totality. So for this, we're going to give it away to Kurt Glaz. Anyway, congratulations. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, but this is yours. We'll send it to you. Next, we're going to do the 10x42 solar binoculars.
Yes.
So these will go to Richard Danley. Thank you again for your question. And finally, the travel scope. So this is the big one. Can you talk about the travel scope, what it comes with and all that?
Absolutely. Actually,
got it right here.
Right here behind you. This will come complete with a tripod. It also comes with a nice little carry bag that's it's a backpack actually. So the tripod folds down, your telescope tube stores within the backpack as well. It will come with a 20mm eyepiece giving you about 18 power. But one of the coolest things for those of you who are asking about how to find the sun, this unit actually comes with this newly designed solar safe finder scope, which is basically kind of all like a sundial. You basically line it up so that the shadow of this appears in the center of the bullseye, and the sun should be within your eyepiece field of view. So hope you enjoy that scope.
Yeah, so this one actually is going to Jean Reith-Miller, and I'm glad that you're going to be receiving this, Jean, because she said that she has a 4-inch Maxitog telescope, and she wasn't finding a solar filter to go on it.
Yes.
And I think this will actually wind up being a better choice for you for viewing the eclipse. So
absolutely.
Now you've got it. So congratulations. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Lance, for answering and sharing your experiences. It was great.
Thank you, Andrea, for getting the questions together.
Of course. And like I said, let us know if you want to see more. And in the meantime, we'll be here making more cool products for you guys. All right. Thanks.
Clear skies.